Welcome to the Judicial Council Center for Families, Children, and the Courts podcast series on juvenile law. Joining us today, we have Denali Tiller, director and producer of Trey Mason Dasan and Dasan Lopes and Stephanie Moniz, who are featured in the film. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Denali, I wanted to start with you. Can you tell us about what you set out to do with this film and who was and is your intended audience, the public, policymakers, and or lawmakers?
Yeah, so when I started the film, I was actually working with a woman who had been formerly incarcerated for 17 years, and so she had 2 kids, and she was pretty much gone for their entire childhood. So she had been doing some work in outlining the stages of grief and trauma that children go through when a parent goes to prison. So with this film, we're really looking at the child's perspective directly, and so working collaboratively with Trey, Mason, and Dasan, the 3 boys, to really share a unique insight and perspective into the criminal justice system from voices and lives that we really don't hear much about. And even, people that work with children, whether that's in the courtroom or in child welfare services, they're not seeing everything that happens behind the scenes. And so I think the power of a film is really that you can really provide that perspective, but also that whole range of experience for people to see, this is what the kids that I'm working with are going through when they leave my office. And so, the audience is pretty broad. We were thinking about how kids can watch the film and see themselves or their peers and build and promote empathy, but also shared experience, that I'm not the only one with this experience. For lawmakers and policymakers, seeing the effects of those policies on not just the person who's justice involved, but their families, and specifically their children. If a person is spending a long time in prison, of course that affects that individual, but there are rippling effects. And thinking about caregivers, a person at home that's having to care for the child, often a grandparent or a family member, who, and then is also incurring even more expenses from the individual who's incarcerated, who can't provide a living for their family because they're making $3 a day or less, or some states even working for free. And then thinking about, on the judicial side, people that are working, again, directly with these families, to just have that in the back of their head that they've seen this film and they feel a little bit more deeply connected to the lives of the people that they're affecting through their work.
And you found compelling people through which to tell the story. Where and how did you select each of these families?
So I started going to the visiting hours at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections, again researching Joyce's program there that was at the time a parenting class for fathers only. And the social workers that I was working with had pointed out a few families as being potentially interesting stories for this film. But really the film is a collaboration with the boys, and so it came down to meeting them and finding children that were interested in participating and had something really unique to share. So I actually met Mason, came up to me in the visiting hours, and if you've seen the film, this will come as no surprise, but he said, "I heard you're making a movie and I have a production company and I'm more than happy to help out if you need it." And I was like, done, you're hired. Come on board. And then Trey, I met, he and Mason's dads were incarcerated in the same facility, so they had the same visiting hours. And Trey had actually just gotten in touch with his father again after years. He was 13 when I met him, and now he's 18. So, he is kind of the opposite of Mason in a lot of ways and doesn't have the support system at home that Mason has. And so for me, it was really important to share 3 different perspectives, both age-wise, but also experience-wise, situation-wise, so that incarceration doesn't affect one type of person or one type of family. So I think it was really important to have a breadth of experience. And then about a year after that, we were granted access to the women's facility, and that's where I met Stephanie first, and then through her met Dasan and his family, and the rest is history, right?
Stephanie, we don't often hear from or about incarcerated mothers. It's an important voice as this population is growing and the impact of their incarceration on families is greater than that of the father. Was the impact of incarceration on families something you wanted to address by appearing in the film?
Yes and no. That wasn't my original thought process when coming on board with Denali. Originally, I thought it was important that the voices of the children are highlighted because, you know, as an adult, I can advocate for myself. I can figure out ways to be resourceful and speak up for myself, but who's doing that for the kids? So at first I was really reluctant to participate in the film because I know that sometimes documentary films can be a bit exploitative. So I didn't want to be in that situation, but seeing how collaborative the process was and how Dasan took to Denali and how he took to the whole filming process, it's important to really humanize these boys and other children who are dealing with this.
And before your incarceration, had you thought much about prisons or jails?
Before incarceration, I don't think I understood what a beast this criminal justice system is. I had my ideas on the type of people that go to prison, and you know, I grew up in a neighborhood where I saw people coming in and out of prison, but I didn't think deeper into it. I didn't think about the systemic factors that go into why people come in and out. So now I have a completely different perspective.
And Dasan, I wanted to talk to you for a minute. Can you tell us about your hobbies and interests?
I have a couple of hobbies. Let's see here. I like drawing. Video games is pretty fun. Dancing, I do that too. Making stories. And I know there's one more, I just can't remember right now. You've been doing theater? Oh yeah, theater. Yeah, that's it.
Dasan, can you tell the audience how old you are?
I am 10 years old currently.
Okay, and Dasan, what has it been like for you following the film? Do people recognize you or ask you about the film?
Not that much. Only like a couple times somebody has said, "Oh, you're Dasan."
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today and talking about the film. It was a pleasure having you all on.
Thank you.
Thank you.